Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you so much for tuning into one of our talks today. We are a year-round talk series bringing you the best creative voices across film, television, and theater. And I'm so thrilled today to be talking about the fantastic IFC film, No Man's Land. We have the wonderful director, Conor Allyn, and writer and lead actor, Jake Allyn as well. And Jake, I wanted to start by asking you a little bit about the writing process, because this was an idea and a script that you were gestating with over a journey of several years. And so I was really interested in kind of over that time, how the script really continued to evolve for you, and how it just really added a lot of layers and a lot of depth, particularly with your lead character.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had always had the original idea of a Texas ranch kid having to immigrate south and putting that shoe on the other foot per se. So, we always had that. And then really over the kind of 7-year period that it took from kind of inception of the first script to shooting, every day it was evolving. I mean, we were in constant communication, whether it be about just creative ideas that we had, news articles that we would read, documentaries. I mean, YouTube even is such a wonderful source these days to not only be able to watch, but to be able to quickly share with somebody, just, hey, check out this 8-minute Vice report I just watched on the border. It's fantastic. And it completely changes your mindset.
Especially on a subject that's in the news that is so topical, the border immigration, that especially over the last 5 years has been so in your face. It is a constant reminder, sometimes as a filmmaker, your project, you want to go in 2013, it needs a few years before it actually happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a great reminder of front page, the New York Times, and there's that girl who drowned in the Rio Grande. And it's a reminder oh yeah, that's important. I need to keep my nose to the grindstone and get that movie made.
Mm-hmm.
And it also pushes research right in your face. I mean, sometimes you go out and research, and sometimes it comes to you. And that was the case with us. Well, I think we made some really great script changes based on stuff the news found us.
I have some very weird YouTube search history things going on, I'm sure. My queue is not like everybody else's YouTube queue, I'm sure.
Well, to that point that you were just making about going out and doing research as well, I know that some of the writing and some of the research process was also going down to Mexico and essentially being on the locations of where your film was taking place. What are some of the details that you feel really fed into the film from the time that you spent there that just really added a lot to the authenticity and the layers of the film and these characters?
The most important thing was definitely starting to work with my co-writer on the film, David Barraza, in Mexico City. The movie starts in Texas or at the border, but really 80% of the movie is in the heart of Mexico. So it would just be so inauthentic if I had tried to do all that by myself. So partnering him was crucial, and that was a few years before we shot it, so we had plenty of time to work together. And then I was surprised by how much came just in pre-production. I went down to Mexico a few weeks before we started shooting the movie and worked with some Mexican charros there on all the horseback stuff. And I would take about an 1.5-hour drive outside of Mexico City every morning to go work with them. And honestly, I mean, you could call it research, I guess, but really I was just cowboying around with them all day. And then I would usually come home at the end of the day and like, Conor, they told me this, they told me that. We got to find a way to put in this.
Did you know that horses don't actually eat apples?
Yeah, yeah, they don't eat apples, Even the hat that, that my character wears in the film, we're having all these wardrobe fittings and trying to find the perfect hat. And then, one day I'm in the stables with these guys and I'm like, oh, that's Jackson's hat. Like, can I have that? And they're like, of course, we'd be, that'd be so cool,
Yeah, you were super unimpressed with the first hat selection. Yeah. They were really
no disrespect.
It wasn't
wonderful
fair.
Costume designer.
And and you were like, I don't,
Hat's important.
Yeah, if you can undervalue the hat, but if you're from Texas and it's gotta be right. And from the directing standpoint, you don't want anything to be stupid. Not to minimize it or make it just overly simplistic, but sometimes you can make a bad choice. And you're doing a cowboy movie and your hero has a hat that just looks stupid, and it just falls with me, just like give her the movie right like that, or
we're
bad
from
hair,
Texas, so
it has to be if you're authentic. To be authentic, you got to start with the little things, the props, the watch, the boots. Frank Grillo he was really his thing wasn't his hat. He was like, oh great, I love it. His boots. He was like, we went through a couple rounds of boots and they just weren't quite right. And you know, it's like something no one's gonna notice his boots, but like he needed to feel comfortable in those boots the way his character would feel because he wore them for 10 years, and like it starts from the ground, from the heels up.
Well, kind of off the back of that point about the boots and how it really needed to feel like something that he'd worn for that many years, was there a weathering process that was applied to the costumes at all? Because it's not like these characters are changing outfits throughout the movie. It's really a lot of the same clothes, and they have this very kind of homey feel, and they all feel like they've been worn for years. They've been out in the fields. They've had dust up against them. So how did you achieve that aesthetic?
There's another huge mistake you can have in a movie is when you have people living on the border and they've got like little creases in their jacket from where they pulled it out of the bag 10 minutes before.
I think I had like 3 filthy gray t-shirts that was the same shirt that we kind of recycled. I felt like I wore it for a year.
We definitely did a lot of work on planning your wardrobe, because it was once Jackson takes off and crosses the border, like that day's wardrobe, you're in for the rest of the movie basically. There's like sort of versions of it where you're working and you take the outer layer off and you're working in the undershirt, or basically you're in that wardrobe for the whole movie. And we had this plan where over the course of the film, Jackson is sort of trying to get to redemption, and he has to go through this journey, and he has to get a lot of pain inflicted on him as he strives to get to this town and find the father. And we wanted to sort of slowly show that pain, and part of that was you get beat up and you end up with scars and scratches and a tan and blisters and all that stuff. And then there was also kind of a shedding of his wardrobe, so that he starts at a certain layer, and by the time he finally gets to the end of the movie and he's ready to have his redemption moment, he's lost everything.
Lost his cowboy hat.
Lost his hat. Yeah, lost his hat. That's the last thing to go, the hat. But yeah, he literally lost the shirt off his back, the hat off his head. Yeah,
we really wanted, when Jackson walks into the church and Gustavo, sees him for the first time, we needed that to be, he's seeing a whole different person,
And Jake, I also wanted to talk a little bit about your process in the way that you prepared for playing this role in the film as an actor, because I know that part of your process for other roles has been to create a lot of journal pages and sometimes to use music as a way of really connecting to the inner world of your character. But since you were obviously writing the script and crafting this character from scratch, was that something that you found wasn't necessary, or did it really fold into the journey of writing the script itself at the same time?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of things that I used while writing, I tried to bring back to the acting. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I did try to, at least, it's impossible to do, to like truly do, but I did try to at some point kind of start the whole process over just as the actor, just to see what else I would find. But ultimately, I certainly used a ton of, things and personal items that I was thinking about while writing to be able to go into the acting side of it all. Selfishly, I was the writer and I stole a lot of things from my real life into the script. Like, what's a good example? There's a story that my mom tells me about pitching and how I never gave up. And, the more we were losing, the harder I threw, and how she needed to watch from far away. I mean, that's just a real story that I took from my own childhood. I even named my mother in the movie Monica, which is my mom's real name. So I don't mind just stealing from my own real life to make it easier on myself.
Yeah. And then Conor, I was really interested in the aesthetic choices that you make in the film. I think that the way that you film those landscapes is just so stunningly done, and even down to the detailing that you managed to capture on camera in terms of just the way the light filters through the dust and you physically feel the heat of the movie in some of those scenes as well. So how did you set about really looking at these outdoor locations and these beautiful landscapes and just figuring out how you could do that justice on a screen?
Well, thank you. And part of it, that was definitely an agenda of the movie, was to like have this, motorcycle diaries-esque travelogue through Mexico as we go on this journey with Jackson. Certainly part of that was just picking really great locations, which was hard on this movie. We really, there were points where it's like, I was just like, we're never gonna find it, you know, like we're gonna have to go shoot this somewhere else. I don't know. We're gonna have to go to a different state. But we ended up finding everything sort of within like 4 or 5 hours of our main hub. But you know, sometimes you just have to find things that speak, I don't know, that speak to you instinctively as the storyteller. The first location, I can tell you for sure, the first location we found, where it was like the first thing after a couple of days of searching and not really finding a lot, we found this little tiny white chapel on the top of a hill, and it's where there's 2 scenes, one before the Mexicans have crossed, and then one right after when they come back into Mexico and the son has been killed, and that chapel is kind of just in the background, and it was just this beautiful, serene spot, this like kind of willowing tree out front of it, and I was like, that's our movie. If we can lock that and just make the rest of the movie sort of look as good as this, you know, this is what we're looking for, and we just find things like that to build around. So that was part of it. And in terms of our style, we wanted to keep. We had a terrific cinematographer, a Mexican cinematographer named J.P. Ramirez, Juan Pablo Ramirez, and he has a great his favorite style is a very controlled, smooth handheld. He stays very intimate to his characters, very close to them. So it's not like a Blair Witch Project kind of handheld. It doesn't feel handheld, but it is. And I think it very subtly makes you feel like you're in there in the room. And you know, we on purpose stayed away from anything that would jar with that. So like, I love a good beautiful drone shot.
Yeah.
And we were in some places that would have been terrific for a huge, wide drone shot of Jackson in the desert and that. But we sort of just made a conscientious choice to avoid that, to always have the camera, you know, seeing it from your perspective, or from the character's perspective of the scene. So when we did go get those like big, beautiful landscape shots, like of Jackson kind of walking his horse over the mountain right after he's escaped Texas and he's entering Mexico. And in that case, we kind of marched up a big, you know, we drove as high as we could, and then we marched the rest of the way up to the top of this mountain and, you know, did it ourselves.
I was gonna say, I think another thing that helped us on the locations was staying flexible to the moment if we had some time. That scene in particular, you know, that was not a scene in the movie or in the script, nor was it a, you know, quote unquote location that we found. We were shooting some B-roll, and we were kind of on the backside of this ranch, and we were like, we should go to the top of that hill.
I think we were chasing some cows. We were trying to get a good herding shot, and the cows kept, you know, it was impossible. I don't know how people do those shots. And we were doing that. We were doing the horses, and then we chased the cows up higher, and then we would follow them, and we sort of found ourselves halfway up this mountain.
Yeah, right at sunset.
And then finally we got to the top.
And I don't even remember it. You know, this is one of the beauties of working with your brother, where you just look at each other and you're like, this is where Jackson sees Mexico for the first time. It was like, we just knew it.
This is clearly amazing. We have to shoot something here.
Yeah.
So what is it going to be? Okay, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's a great moment in the movie.
It is. And it's also, with the film as a whole, it's really this introspective journey with this character. And there's so many internalized moments with what he's going through as he's trying to, you know, accept what he did and figure out how he's going to emotionally process that and take responsibility. So what are the challenges that came in terms of both performance and directing with really trying to externally convey this journey of a character that's going through such an internal journey and process themselves?
I mean, I kind of feel like, and this probably relates to both of us, the hardest part was probably doing it inch by inch, you know, making sure that while the character is going on this huge physical journey, his emotional journey is like very, very slow and controlled. And that's one of the things I was very grateful to have Conor there for, because, you know, I think one of the directions you often gave me was like, is Jackson there yet? Like, emotionally, is he ready to accept that it is his fault that he killed the boy? And like, is he ready for this? Is he ready for that? And just can, you know, challenging me with those questions, I thought really helped. And that was definitely one of the harder things from the acting side.
And from the directing side, I guess, it was really just trying to help the acting side, to be honest. And it was just trying to put us in a good situation. You know, we pushed in the shooting schedule. We put the church scene, the final moment between when these two guys finally meet, when Jackson meets Gustavo. You know, we put that as deep in the schedule as we possibly could. And their first interaction is early in the schedule, so that, you know, you'll actually have lived through as many of those moments as possible before we get to it.
Another hard thing was just being as good as everybody else. You know, I'm openly very competitive, and you know, the second day on set, the second day of shooting, Jorge Jimenez, the guy who played the Mexican father Gustavo, has to have this, you know, big emotional scene with his mother after he's lost his son by the tree. And I mean, I thought he just knocked it out of the park. And I remember showing up there and just being like, oh no, like, he's so good. I have to go back and work, you know, he's so good. And Frank Grillo, for instance, was a guy who I've admired for years and years. And, you know, he's on my dream list of actors to work with. So to be told, yeah, he's going to play your father, it's like, okay, I need to bring my A game. And obviously Andy McDowell and George Lopez, I mean, they've been household names for decades. So you want to
get out acted. You gotta be in there.
And, you know, in terms of the animals that you have in the film, I mean, firstly, you have everything from turtles and chickens to horses and cows throughout the film, and dogs. But particularly, I love the relationship that Jackson has with his horse Sundance. And even just the way that he moves and has a different type of relationship with that horse. And even though he still has a closeness with the one that he's trying to train, you know, it's a different type of intimacy. And so the way that you filmed it and captured that relationship, it really feels like the two of them have been side by side together for years to have that intimacy. So what was the journey in trying to figure out how to create that intimacy, you know, particularly with an animal, and how to film it in that way?
To be honest, Tapatio, the name of the actor horse that played Sundance, I had the most rehearsal with him out of anybody in the cast. You know, I spent a couple weeks with him before we started shooting, just getting to ride him. I was so happy. I don't know if you know the movie Silverado. It's a Kevin Costner Western, but I think that movie came out in 1990, and my parents wanted to find an all-American name for me, and so they named me Jake after Kevin Costner's character name in that movie. And in the movie, Jake rides a paint horse. And so when I wrote this script, I was like, it has to be a paint horse, you know. But I'm an actor. I know you want things, and you don't always get the cowboy hat you want or the horse that you want. But Conor found an amazing
very
horse.
Tough to get a paint horse for a movie horse, because horses tend to get doubled too, right? So you almost exclusively. I did one rodeo movie before this, so I'm pretty well versed in the horse department, and you almost always want either an all black or an all brown horse, because then you can swap horses, and you can actually like dye the horses. So any horse can be black or any horse can be brown, but you can't take a black or brown horse and make them a paint horse. So we had plenty of black and brown horse options, but we really wanted this paint horse, and it looks so. Not to say we just did it because it's pretty, but it just looks so great.
But it is pretty.
It just stands out. You know.
And honestly, I tried to just create the same way that I would like work through a relationship with my father character in the movie. I tried to do the same with that character. I mean, Sundance is an important character in the movie, and our relationship is important. And in the desert, it's just me and him. And even, you know, when we talked about kind of the shedding of the character's clothes and emotions throughout the journey, you know, one of the most important scenes I always saw in the movie was when he asked to leave his horse to go find Gustavo. And like,
now he's truly,
if he has, you know, if that's the final linchpin between his old life and going to find the father, if that doesn't hurt, you know, if that doesn't cost the character something and ultimately the audience something, you know, it's going to lose its vigor.
Mhm. I'm also really interested in the journey in filming that really central and pivotal scene where he ends up shooting the kid, because I think it was a very delicate scene in the film, and it feels like if you hadn't gotten it right, then the audience wouldn't have been with you and cared about what happened to this character after that point. And even within that scene, there's a huge ensemble of characters in that, and you're trying to tell us information and character points about all of them, their relationships to each other, how they're responding to this situation that's happening. And even just logistically, it seems like a very challenging scene to film, beyond the fact you've got all those actors and what you're trying to convey, but even just, filming something like that at night and thinking about the lighting of that shot. So what was the journey like in terms of just really pulling all of those elements together for it?
I'm getting like stomach acid just thinking about it right
It was a
now.
long night.
Just remembering it.
One night though.
Yeah, I mean, it's super important scene in the movie. Almost, like most of the cast in that one scene. It's a night scene. There's kids, there's cows, horses, dark. We shot one thing before. We basically wanted to spend the whole night on just that scene. We only had the one night to do it. We shot one sunset thing and then did some rehearsal or something, and then headed down to this other section, and we make the van drive down there, and I can see that the crane isn't up, and I'm like, oh, we're screwed. And then whatever, some hoopla about the crane problems and lights, and it's gonna take so many hours to fix it, and then we're just sitting there like rehearsing and staying busy, but like looking at the watch, being like, how many, like, give me at least a few hours to film this. This is really important, and we cannot come back to it. Mishmash of schedules and problems, and Frank's going to China, and all kinds of stuff. And so this was it. And we did, use the time, but it was tough to rehearse without any light, because we're literally, it was really dark. Finally, and also we only have one camera. This whole movie was one camera by choice. So it was not going to be easy. And my shot list is like 6 pages long. And every minute that's going by, I'm like, okay. And so we finally get the lights up. We do one rehearsal, and then we have to take lunch, one like camera rehearsal, lunch, and then we come back from it, and I'm very worried. We do another rehearsal to get back into it, and then what we decided to do prior to all these problems was, do these like long moving masters, and JP and I had it pretty well planned out of like how he would sort of move within the scene, and JP's awesome and like really instinctive, and like he finds the shot even if things change a bit. And so that we'd be incorporating both close-ups and wides and mediums and stuff as the shot moves. And it's a long scene, so we're talking about doing the whole thing in like a 5-minute, 5-6 minute run. And I'm super worried. I don't think we're going to finish at this point. And then we do the first take, and it's awesome. And like, now not everything works, because we can't do, not everything works in the scene, in the sense that like, we can't do blood yet on this first shot, because we're going to continue the scene, so we don't want the person to get all bloody in the first take. So it's not like a oneer, but we do this first take, and it's great, and I can see like, oh, I've just checked off like 12 things on my shot list. This is going to be great. And it's then you start to feel okay, and then it's like, okay, now we just have to worry about picking up things. But I guess it's just to say it was a scary scene to shoot. There were a lot of challenges, but everyone knew how important it was. All the cast knew this was a big scene, and everyone was really focused. And when it was time to go, everyone was ready.
Mm-hmm. And with making the film overall for both of you, what are you proudest of having personally accomplished through this film?
Good question. I know my answer pretty instinctively, which is and I don't to sound overblown here, but like, we would like to change the world just a tiny little bit. And if a few people see this movie, or a lot of people see this movie, which we hope they will, and are, see the humanity in the film, in the social issue that it talks about, that would be really great for us, for me.
Yeah, I mean, one of the messages of the movie that we set out to accomplish was just we're not that different from each other, you know, no matter what side of the border you're from. And, you know, I personally believed when I see the end credits roll, I say, yeah, we did that. So that's what I'm proud of.
Yeah. Well, it's a really, really beautiful film. Congratulations on all of that. And thank you so much for talking with us about it.
Thank you, Mara.
Thank you.